Hello and welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. We are in conversation with a member of the RSS National Executive, Ram Madhavji, who was earlier on deputation with the BJP, where he handled a couple of key states. He handled the Northeast. He was, in fact, one of the people responsible for delivering the Northeast to the BJP, and also the crucial state of Jammu and Kashmir, a union territory now, but that's also an area which is under the spotlight. The Prime Minister recently held a meeting with the state leaders, and that's something I'm going to be discussing with Ram Madhav. Really begin by first welcoming you to this conversation, Ram Madhavji. And can you first talk about the meeting that took place recently between the Prime Minister and 16 leaders from Jammu and Kashmir? Now, my first question to you is that, earlier this government has been calling these very same leaders, I think at least 6 of them were jailed after the abrogation of Article 370. A lot of these leaders have been very dismissively referred to as the Gupkar gang. So now, of course, they're being given legitimacy, and the Prime Minister is now talking to gang leaders, or is he talking to political leaders? Do you say that they are now political leaders? Is the government now at least admitting that?
Lot of water has flown down the river, so you should not try to turn it back. What has happened. Okay, we could have avoided calling them gang and all. Similarly, they also said so many things about the government and its decisions and all. On both sides, there were political exchange of comments and statements and all. But that is all past now. The government as well as the parties in Jammu and Kashmir, both are looking forward to a meaningful engagement. That was the message that has come out of the meeting that Prime Minister has hosted 2 days ago. I personally feel that this would be a very important turning point in the future of Jammu and Kashmir, for one important reason, that the process that Prime Minister and this government began 2 years ago, after the abrogation of Article 370, that process has yet to reach its logical culmination. Its logical culmination will be when Jammu and Kashmir again becomes a full state. Whatever residual Jammu and Kashmir is there, minus Ladakh, it again becomes a full state, and elections are held. A new popular government takes over the reins of power there. And the meeting day for yesterday, I think largely focused the deliberations on those issues, which is, I think, very good for the state of for Jammu and Kashmir.
You're saying they shifted the marker for the Jammu and Kashmir narrative from early on we used to always say pre-53. Now it's going to be 2019 or pre-2019. That's the new goalpost really. And so it's actually looking forward. It's trying to take the conversation forward.
Today it is not even pre-2019 because as far as I know, none of the participant parties or the leaders was any emphatic on that question of Article 370. At the most, some apparently have suggested that since it is sub judice, let us wait for the judiciary to take a view. Beyond that, today the discussion, at least in that meeting, was not even about 2019 or pre-2019. The new goalpost or new aspiration appears to be to have a good delimitation exercise conducted in the state, following which elections to the legislature, a government in place, so that the power can be returned to the people's representatives. That seems to be the mood of the leaders who are present, but I can tell you that that is the dominant mood in Jammu and Kashmir today.
Before I get to the content of the meeting, I'm not the mood or the value. I want to first get to the timing of the meeting. You wrote also it is Dil ki duri or Dilli ki duri pass kari hai. You try to bridge the gap. Is it due to internal pressure? Because there is a lot of messages being read on the fact that the Prime Minister tweeted that in a democratic process, the test is when you're sitting face to face with your adversaries. He heard them all for 3 hours, and everybody who came out were actually already amazed that they were heard. The bar is so low that even if you're being heard by the Prime Minister, the adversaries come out looking shell-shocked that this has not happened before. Why this change of attitude?
That is why I said earlier also that the process that began in August 2019 has to actually reach its culmination, its logical end. The logical end is when there is a full-fledged government in Jammu and Kashmir, the new unit, whether it is the state or whatever.
So I shouldn't read too much in the timing as of why now.
No. Actually, on the contrary, Honorable Prime Minister said that it came late. It got delayed because of the pandemic. Probably had the pandemic not come in the way, this meeting would have taken place much earlier.
And now the content, we've heard Omar Abdullah raise a very important point in terms of the delimitation process. He's saying both Assam and Jammu and Kashmir the delimitation is supposed to happen. In fact, the entire country is going to happen 2026. He's saying, we didn't wait for that. In Assam, you didn't wait, hold the elections back. You said delimitation hota rahega, let's do the elections first. But in Kashmir and Jammu, that's the other way around. First do the delimitation and then do the elections. Explain that.
No, I think he raised, I mean, not necessarily he, but his party raised that issue in the meeting also, it seems. And Honorable Home Minister has clarified that since delimitation was made a part of the act that was responsible for the creation of this new union territory, it is mandatory on the part of the government to undertake that exercise first before going for the polls. See, Jammu and Kashmir has been created through an act. The UT has been created through an act. That act contains this aspect that there should be delimitation first before elections could be conducted in the state. So there is no comparison with other states like Nagaland and Assam.
But who drafted the act and put the provision in? The provision has been put in for a certain purpose. Now, the conspiracy theorists have a theory also on that.
The act was promulgated by the Parliament of India,
where the BJP has a majority,
of which Farooq Abdullah Saab is also a member.
He's a member, but he was not. How much he was consulted and how much he was involved in the process of the drafting.
No act is passed by consulting an individual member. It is the decision of the House. House has passed that act.
Okay. But the delimitation, now there is a genuine concern also, I would say, that currently Kashmir has a larger number of seats. Now the whole purpose of delimitation is to shift the balance in favor of Jammu. Will the delimitation be done in terms of population, or will it be geography, or are the people do they have a genuine cause to worry that it will shift the balance?
Look, these are all unnecessary confusion that is sought to be created by vested interests. This delimitation is going to be on the lines of the one that was conducted in 2006 across the country. The act that will be guiding this delimitation is the same act of year 2000. There is no new delimitation act promulgated by this government. The act will be of the 2000 vintage, using which the 2006 delimitation for the entire country was conducted. Same procedure will be followed. So where is the question of special injustice in Jammu and Kashmir? So these are all unnecessary controversies that some vested political interests seek to create. I am very confident that I think people know that delimitation is a quasi-judicial exercise. Like the commission that is constituted under Justice Ranjana Desai is like a court. So this whole process will be very transparent. It is going to follow the same rules that were applied to entire country in 2006. So there should not be any suspicion, any doubt, apprehension about this delimitation exercise.
But the skeptics also say that, what did the party from Kashmir walk away with from that meeting? The Prime Minister got legitimacy to his delimitation process. Even people earlier who were saying we won't be part of it, like the Abdullahs are saying now we will reconsider our decision. So he's got Prime Minister and the BJP has got legitimacy. What have they haven't got assurance as to when elections will be held, and also when will the statehood be announced? You said it's on the cards, but when is that going to happen?
No, firstly, this meeting was an important icebreaker. Those parties which were at some point mulling over even boycotting this meet have finally decided in their own wisdom to come and take part. It's a very important message. Number one, the Valley parties have conveyed indirectly to the government that okay, they have faith in this government and in this constitutional process of this country. Number two, by, as you rightly pointed out, by giving a patient ear to all those parties and their views, the government, the Prime Minister also reassured them that yes, we are here to listen to you. We are here to understand your viewpoint within the ambit of our constitution. We all should work together. I think the take home for both sides is a very important take home. For the parties in the state, in Jammu and Kashmir, they can work together with this government on whether it is delimitation or going beyond delimitation, the elections and new political process, democratic process to kickstart in the state. On the part of the government, the important message that the Valley parties gave was, like in the past, they are ready to put their trust, faith in the constitutional system of this country, in the constitution and the governance of this country. Two important takeaways from this meeting.
Also, a lot of talk has to be walked back on. Earlier on, the Prime Minister made fun of the fact the Valley was in the grip of two dynasties, two political families, and then when Article 370 was abrogated, there was a general conversation was from the BJP quarters that now we will promote a new leadership. You had the district council elections. That new leadership really hasn't happened. Have they now realized that they will have to deal with these two families if they want to get anything done in Kashmir as yet?
No, on the contrary, if you see carefully, even if you look at that very picture, that picture speaks volumes. First of all, the kind of very unified image that picture has presented to the content to the entire world is most heartening, and it should be welcomed by one and all. But also you must understand that there were people from quite a few parties there, not just two parties. Jammu Kashmir has had a history until almost the 2000s. There was a single party domination in that valley, single family domination, rather I would say. It was early 2000s, during Vajpayee era, that PDP came into existence. It became a two-party system there, and again it became a two-family system. Today, when you look carefully at that Prime Minister's meeting, you find people not necessarily belonging to only these two families. There was a Sajad Lone, there was a Muzaffar Beg, there was an Altaf Bukhari, there was CPM's Tarigami. There were people from Jammu, the BJP, the Congress, mainstream parties. So today, everybody has been treated as an equal stakeholder in the state. That is the most important message that one has to get from this meeting. So that's why even Prime Minister in one of his tweets has emphasized on the fact that their new leadership should emerge now. The process for the new leadership to emerge has already started in the valley. This meeting has reflected it. There are people who are relatively new entrants but got equal opportunity to share their views with the Prime Minister. That is how we have to nurture parties. Here, I underline one point. When we talk about new leadership, it should not be like, you need amplifiers of Delhi or you need mouthpieces of Delhi. It's not that way. It has to be genuinely people's representatives, not belonging to these traditional two parties, because these two parties, unfortunately, even to this day, are stuck in a time warp. They still want to go back to pre-53. They still want to go back to pre-2019, whereas the general mood in the Kashmir Valley or in the entire Jammu Kashmir is to look ahead. So we need new leadership outside of these two parties that is slowly emerging.
One quick question also before we go for a break. Will there be statehood or will there be partial statehood? Like, will police law and order remain with the state? There is also an apprehension that the center might keep it and not give it to the state, given the fact that we're talking about the valley.
No, only the government can answer that question. But as far as I know, the government has repeatedly reiterated that, look, we are committed to returning now we should not call it returning because this state is different from the earlier residual Jammu and Kashmir, granting it full statehood. The commitment was given by Home Minister right inside the parliament. So I think at some point definitely the UT will get its full statehood back.
Ramaji, we talked about the meeting the Prime Minister had with the J&K leaders. I was going to, before the break, ask you about those who were not invited. The Kashmiri Pandit community is very vocal, saying that our views were not taken into account.
So this meeting was an all-party meeting. In the all-party meeting, each party was represented by two people. There were four former Prime Ministers, four former Deputy Prime Ministers, and leaders from other parties were also present. But when Prime Minister talked about all-round development of Jammu and Kashmir, he certainly meant the development of the issues relating to Kashmiri Pandits, other refugees, even grievances of people of Jammu and others. So it's not inviting Pandits was should not necessarily become a question because it's an all-party meet. It's not an all-group meet. Definitely, the Pandit leadership and others will certainly be welcomed by, I think, the government if they, if whenever they want to convey their views to the government will be open to definitely listening to them. This meeting was different. It's meant for all these people. Having said it, I can also, people also know that even Kashmiri Pandits issues have been raised by the parties in the meeting. Those issues have also been placed before the government. Government also probably has responded in its own way to those issues. So it's not that Kashmiri Pandit issues have been ignored. They have been taken up and discussed in the meeting. That's what we get to understand.
Also feeling amongst those who attended the meeting that some kind of back channel talks with Pakistan are going on. Will this also lead the way, since Kashmir, there has always been the burning issue with Pakistan is concerned, or with neighbors like China? Is this also a step forward in resolving it? If we get, resolve the situation in Kashmir, do you think talks with Pakistan would be at a more official level?
Look, Priya, let me be frank here. I have all along been saying this. I will repeat it. This is a big kind of myth that the Valley leadership propagates, mainly within the Valley, but sometimes in Delhi also, as though Pakistan has great stakes in Jammu and Kashmir issue. We have been repeatedly saying that Pakistan, whether government of India talks with them, doesn't talk with them, is a totally different issue. It should not have anything to do with handling the affairs of Jammu and Kashmir. Parties like PDP, they always try to create this kind of an impression as though Pakistan is an integral part of any process relating to Jammu and Kashmir. Whereas our stand is no. Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part of India. What should happen to it, what will happen to it, will be decided by the people, the stakeholders, and the government of India. All of them together will do it. Pakistan has no locus standi as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned. Having said it, maybe government of India is talking to them. It is as much important to somebody in Delhi or somebody in Hyderabad as to somebody in Srinagar.
Fair enough. That's a good point that you made. But Pakistan and China, where do you see us going? We both are neighbors. I think we are in a pretty tough spot in terms of relations with both the neighbors. How do you see these things progressing?
You see, you cannot choose your parents. Similarly, you cannot choose your neighbors. You have two neighbors, difficult neighbors. You have to deal with them. And these problems that we are talking about, the problems that we face with these two neighbors, have not started in 2014. They have been going on for a lot of years, for many decades now. We have learned to deal with those challenges. There will be ups and downs in this relationship. I remember in 2008, when Mumbai attack took place, Manmohan Singh was the Prime Minister. We stopped talking with Pakistan for one full year. So it took more than a year to resume relations with that country. So these things have happened in the past. Presently also, there are people who are dealing with those issues. Our effort has always been to maintain good relations with all our neighbors. I think
But
that
it's been
effort
1 year since the standoff with China. Do you think there's any progress has been made? There's a whole lot of feeling that we gave away more at the negotiating table than what we had won on the ground.
I don't think that is true. On the contrary, in Pangang So Lake area, we actually compelled the Chinese to go back to their original position, which is beyond the finger 8. So they were compelled to go back, which is a good thing. All that we have been saying is to maintain status quo ante with 2019 April as the cutoff period. China has to agree to go back to its previous positions in the other 2-3 areas. The negotiations are going on. 11 rounds of talks have happened. One very important difference that we have to understand, unlike in the past, when we only used to have diplomatic negotiations to resolve these such kind of issues, today we are of course engaged in diplomatic relations, but also on the ground, we are firmly resisting them. We are standing eyeball to eyeball with them in all these areas and forcing them to go back. So on the ground, firm positioning and proactive diplomacy, both are being put in action to address the challenge with China.
I'll quickly change the topic to more domestic concerns, which is the COVID management. The government has come into a lot of scrutiny in terms of how the second wave was handled. There is, of course, an attempt to pass the blame onto the states. But how confident are you of the third wave? How confident are you of the COVID to make up for what's going to happen in the terms of the loss that we've suffered, the economy suffered because of lockdown? What is the road ahead?
The second wave in India was like the first wave in many Western countries.
Yes.
It came like a tsunami. It caused severe havoc in most developed countries like America and other European countries. It caused severe damage to us in India also. It's a debate that will go on for a long time to come as to whether the government has failed or not taken enough measures and all. Let us leave it to the wisdom of the people. I only know that government has made best efforts to tackle the tsunami. It was not just a wave, it was like a tsunami. And in that, it needed a lot of support from the states. States also tried their best, but the problem is the healthcare, primary healthcare, public healthcare establishment in India has been a story of great neglect for many decades. Suddenly, when we were faced with this kind of a situation, our institutional, establishment was not well equipped to tackle that. That's a long-term challenge we have to face. Government has now increased budgetary support to public health care in a very big way. 1 percentage point budget has been increased. I think government will now proactively take care of any future challenges, whether third wave will come. If it comes, what will be its intensity? Nobody knows. It's all guesswork and predictions and scaremongering. But I think government will be better equipped to tackle it. Economy is a challenge, I agree. And in fact, I see more than third wave, the bigger challenge to be the recovery and revival of the economy. I'm sure people in the government are focusing on that.
That's reassuring to hear because, there is a feeling that first the government has to acknowledge and then deal with the problem also. So I'm glad that people are saying that there is a concern and hopefully something will be done. We've seen also, we've been, as I said earlier, you're someone who's also been spokesperson with the RSS, who's been, as I said, makes RSS easy for the rest of us. So one quick question, you always said that RSS doesn't interfere in the BJP, but in the UP, for instance, what we've seen with Yogi Adityanath's case, the common feeling is that the Prime Minister wanted him to go, but RSS intervened and ensured that Yogi Adityanath or Shivraj Singh Chauhan, people like them stayed on. How true is this?
There's no truth in that at all.
That you will say, but what is the real truth?
These are issues that the party leadership in its own will. I, first of all, do not really know if there existed any problem between Prime Minister and Yogi and Prime Minister and Shivraj, all these stories. I really do not know if they are true, number one. Number two, if there are issues between leader in the state and leader at the national level, they will be sorted out through party mechanisms. RSS never interferes in those issues. RSS is like an umbilical cord that connects all these people together. That umbilical cord being a similar ideological vision.
Okay, let me have that last question. Slightly, you, as I said in my introduction, you were sent on deputation to the BJP, and now you've been, back to the RSS. So there's been a lot of speculation as to why that happened, the timing of it. So if you can, share something with us as to that.
I am also surprised why that happened, but that's okay. Leaders have to, leaders have a particular tenure in our party. In our party, nobody is permanent. My tenure of 6 years have completed, and probably the party leadership had better people to take matters forward. They have chosen better people in our place. It's a process that happens. Nobody is permanent in any post. Fair enough. I'm back in RSS now.
Thank you for taking that question candidly. Better people or not, I think we'll let others be the judge of that, because you are being, I think, modest. The fact that you handled so many states and delivered so many states to the BJP is a matter of record. But thank you so much for this conversation, and stay well and stay safe.
Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.